Just a little bit more advice and counsel for young Eli.
Oh, yes.
If I can.
Is this a Dan Proft parenting tip?
It is a Dan Proft parenting
Let me put
tip.
on my glasses.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Proceed.
Don't we have theme music to that?
Oh, yeah.
It's been a
Wait, no,
while.
come on.
This is actually good. I didn't even realize it.
And I know we got. Come on.
These should be officially designated.
It's time for Dan Proft's parenting tips. Whoa! Dan Proft's parenting tips. Whoa! Tell your kids to shut up and listen to him.
You're a child.
As I was thinking about this too, I could actually displace Frank from Arlington Heights. We're going to do the Frank's History Minute starting next week.
Oh, we are?
Uh-huh.
Is he coming into the studio to
No,
record it, or is it just going to be on the phone line?
No, he'll do it remotely. All right, so here's
you've got it all figured.
So
I don't need to know the details.
Here's the detail. Here's the deal here. So, if I may invoke,
You're giving me some unsolicited advice. Continue.
the founding fathers when it comes to this problem Eli's having with rushing.
Yes. They don't have rush counselors, which is weird.
Thomas Jefferson's letter to Francis Hopkinson in 1789, explaining why he was not a Federalist but an anti-Federalist. He said, among other things, if I could not go to heaven but with a party of men, I would not go there at all. It's founding fathers. Interestingly, Hopkinson is credited with designing the Continental Money.
Okay.
Signatory of the Declaration from New Jersey. And that money made its way to Bob Menendez's clothing. I mean, that's how history.
Full circle.
I mean, see how it all connects? See how it all connects?
Thank you.
All right.
I'll be sure
If I could not go to heaven but with a party, I would not go there at all. That's what Russell should say to those fraternities. I'm an independent thinker. I'm an anti-federalist. I'm a descendant of the founders. I am
a dar.
I expect a rhetorical flourish from him during that process.
Okay. Thank you. I'll pass that along.
All right. Now we have to get, speaking of money, now we have to get to the filthy business of dollars and cents. Just when I'm distilling Shakespeare for a former president and invoking the founding fathers in the context of rushing, Jim Iuorio is a trafficker in this ugly business of making money. He's also the host of the Future's Edge podcast and the proprietor of Brant's Restaurant in Palatine. Jim, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Did you want to comment at all? Were you a member of a fraternity at college?
I was a member of a Phi Delta Theta fraternity at the University of Illinois.
Oh.
Yep.
That's a business fraternity, right?
No, that's just a regular old run-of-the-mill fraternity.
Is that Fiji? No, Phi Delts.
Fiji's Phi Delts.
Yeah, you're Phi Delts. Okay. Oh, I know your signal.
Mm-hmm. What did you have to do?
Secret signal.
They
hazed the heck out of us. We had to do, for our Hell Week, we had to stay up for, basically 10 days straight, scrub the house, always, be ready to do push-ups. All the traditional stuff, we were about the last round of it, which I thought was kind of funny at the time. It's not, it depends on what your mindset is or how awful it is, the victimhood people. You don't have to do it. Just leave if you don't want to do it.
It makes you a man, don't you think?
Well, would you like to organize? Would you like to organize a class action lawsuit against the University of Illinois for your time there?
Of course, yeah. If I can get a buck out of it, because I do traffic in the evil, terrible, profit-making money scheme.
It's disgusting.
Going on.
Yeah.
But Amy, to your point though, what it does is your Pledge Brothers. It gives you funny stories to talk about for the next 50 years.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's kind of the point of it. All the guys going through the same stuff, and that's what people miss, I think.
I know, and I really hope to God he gets into one. It's either going to be Phi Psi or Teak. So.
Oh, nice. Both good. Yeah.
Phi Delts at Iowa got kicked off.
If I could not go to heaven, but with a. All right. Good grief.
Well, you're just jealous because you didn't go through the Greek system.
I'm not jealous at all. And the word is envious.
Oh.
Not envious is the deadly sin. Jealous. You guard something jealously. That's good. You're envious of somebody else. That's bad. You see?
More Dan Proft parenting tips.
I have so much to offer, Jim. It's shocking how I'm single. Anyway, Jim, let's talk about money. And so we're still expecting a rate hike before the year is out because this inflation is looking more and more structural?
We're kind of expecting a rate hike. It's like a 40% chance right now of a 25 basis point hike in the November meeting, and that's all. There's a lot of people who think that inflation is going to be persistent. I'm not really in that camp. I think one of the cures for higher prices is higher prices. I think what was really interesting about this rate hike cycle that a lot of people missed is that it didn't really hit to slow the economy because the 5 years prior to the first rate hike, U.S. 10-year yields averaged 1.96. And I don't mean to go too far into the weeds here, but what that meant is there was 5 years that any borrower could roll into duration. Like, let's say you're a homeowner. It was stupid to have a 3-year ARM if all of a sudden 30-year mortgages were 2.8%. So everybody rolled into duration. So many people are insulated from the normal effects of higher interest rates, and that's not just people owning mortgages. That's businesses. That's everybody who had a lot of debt. So those people are all sitting on long-term debt, going, "Gosh, sucks to be you if you have to borrow right now." But it's not as many people who it's been in the past. So I think it's going to take a longer time for these rate hikes to hit. But I think they're going to hit and hit hard. I think we're going into a relatively nasty recession sometime in this fourth quarter or the next first quarter.
Oh, really? You do now. You're back in sort of the bearish mode.
Definitely. I think that at the same time these rate hikes are going to start kicking, because people eventually have to sell their house. Life happens. Kids go to school, you get divorced, people die. So houses come to the market. And if people aren't there to buy them, it could really depress the housing prices. Right now, it's a supply issue because nobody wants to part with their 3% mortgage
Right.
to sell their house to buy a new one 7.5. So it's a supply issue. But as soon as the supply starts to hit the market, that was bad. The labor numbers. A month ago when we had the non-farm payroll numbers, this is the biggest scam going, or it's a stupid way to measure it, because every month of added jobs, the first 7 months of this year, has been revised lower. So the headline number each month comes in and beats expectations, and then quietly the next 3 months it gets revised. Like the June number that came in at 210,000 jobs added has now been quietly revised down to 105,000 jobs added. So they've really overestimated jobs by about 500,000 so far this year alone. So I'm not even saying that it's corrupt. I'm just saying that it's bad. Maybe just the model's bad, or maybe people want to dress it up.
Well, so do you think the mortgage rates are ever going to go down? Like a 30-year fixed is at what, almost 8%?
Yeah, I do. If you look at here's what I believe is that sometime within the next year, like the futures market is already saying the Fed is going to start lowering rates right around the middle of next year. Here's the funny part, though, is that the futures market says that they're going to lower rates by like a quarter, 25 basis points in the fall, 25 basis points in the late fall. That's not how it works. If the Fed all of a sudden is going to pivot and start lowering rates, it will mean that burning timbers are falling from the ceiling. Something's going to break, like what looked like last March when all of a sudden we saw those problems in the banking crisis. It looked like the whole system was going to be sucked in for a second. It didn't look at for very long, granted. But if something like that happens, then all of a sudden the Fed's back lowering rates, and I think mortgage rates will go back down. I don't think they're sustainable at 8%. I think it's ridiculous.
If is going to be Armageddon if the government, if about a fifth of the government quote unquote shuts down for a week or 10 days?
Okay, let's put this nonsense in some perspective. Okay, so I believe the actual numbers is 16 to 20% of the federal government, which really equates to about 2% of total government when you talk about state, county, municipal government. It's nothing. It's a good start to get rid of 2% of government. And I'm watching, my wife, I was accidentally watching like the network news, and I do quotations when I do news in this fair city, Chicago, and they're really profiling these people who could be out of work because of the government shutdown. And all I could think about is, where were you people 3 years ago when everyone's being shut down and you were cheerleading it? So the hypocrisy is just absolutely absurd. But yes, do I think it could be used as a big political thing? Yeah, we've seen what people are willing to believe when they watch the TV. So it could be a big political thing, but as far as an actual fundamental thing, I couldn't care less if they shut down non-essential and let it shut down for 2 years.
What about the future?
Forever.
What about the future of the auto industry? I mean,
Today, Biden's going to be walking the picket lines with the strikers.
against the backdrop of that strike, it seems to me you have a more fundamental problem, not just the demands of UAW, but you have U.S. automakers that make increasingly expensive, unreliable, and thus uncompetitive products. So, the future of those jobs and the auto industry in this country generally.
So, one thing I never minded, I was never against and actually somewhat for unions within the private sector because there's a mechanism built into that system. When they go on strike, if they ask for too much, the company goes into bankruptcy, everybody loses their gig. It's a system that creates its own equilibrium. But once the government starts to involve itself in those negotiations, and the fact that Joe Biden's walking on the picket line, it amazes me. Our whole entire system is built on government essentially staying out of the capitalist way and letting it work itself out. And now all of a sudden they're just doing the exact opposite. Now to put that in perspective too, just 2 months ago, the government gave $9 billion to Ford, ostensibly to build some EV plants, which whatever. I personally think it was just to tell Elon Musk that he wasn't behaving properly, so Ford was going to get their money. But anyway, this is corporatism, and this whole thing. If we don't have a comparative advantage in cars and we can't make cheap cars to compete, those companies are supposed to go out of business. The worst possible thing is that the government then jumps in and starts subsidizing them, and then we limp along with the crappy car industry while the rest of the world is eating our lunch, which, by the way, has happened for the last 35 years.
Mm-hmm. Going back to put some more detail to what you said about a rather nasty recession, I think was the phrase you used, coming fourth quarter of this year or first quarter of next year. So what does that look like? Because for a long time we were hearing about the soft landing. We were hearing about a recession that may occur and it may be longer but shallower than originally believed. And now it suggests that it seems you're suggesting something different.
Yeah, well, the soft landing narrative is funny. Someone pulled clips of about 20 different economists back in 2007 saying that now the new narrative was going to be the soft landing. And to me, I equated it like if you jump from a 50-story building, it is a fact that the fall will not kill you. The fall's fine. It's the landing that'll kill you. So the notion that the plane is heading towards the ground and everyone's going, it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine. How the heck do they know it's going to be fine? Every time we've headed towards lower like this, it is an inexact science for where it's going to stop. So what I think is the labor market is where the problems are going to start. And then with the labor markets, we talked about, people not being able to afford their mortgages and then properties hitting the market, which will depress the price. But the wild card in all this, in my opinion, is commercial real estate. I think that particularly in urban areas, Chicago, there was just a study that came out that Chicago had the worst in vacancy rates, the worst in potential bankruptcies among these companies that are holding these things. So that's where I think the breaking is going to come from, is commercial real estate.
Well, yeah, actually, it's interesting. There was a piece of the nation's top 20 markets. The distress rate of commercial mortgage-backed security loans last month was 7.2%. Chicago tops the list for troubled loans at nearly 23%, followed by Denver at 19, Philadelphia 14, and down the list. So Chicago topping the list for troubled loans in that space by
we are number one.
Pretty wide margin, yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny when you elect a mayor who literally stands in front of you and says, "Oh yeah, I am going to be pro-crime, and here's how I'm going to be pro-crime. I'm not going to prosecute such and such under this threshold. I've in the past uttered defund the police. We're not going to pursue criminals." And guess what happens? Carjacking's up three times what they were over the last first 4 months of the last mayor. Same with cars being stolen. People are starting to not want to be in the city of Chicago. And yeah, guess what? There's going to show up is delinquency rates in commercial property.
Well, it's a beautiful city. It's got great restaurants. Cubs may
Great
go to the Cubs could be in the playoffs, so everything's fine.
No, there's a lot to look forward to.
It's great.
I ride my bike along the lake.
Lakefront's beautiful.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
It's
So what were you
beautiful,
saying?
and I always say to myself, they can't ruin that, can they?
Yeah.
Oh no, they
Wouldn't
can.
put
Don't,
Mhm.
yeah. At least it's open now. It was closed for 2 years.
Gary's on the lake.
This exercise
Jim.
was bad.
Gary's
Gary's
on the lake. Just FYI. Jim Iuorio, host of the Future's Edge podcast, proprietor of Brandt's Restaurant in Palatine. Jim, thanks as always.
Thanks, Remy.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy on the AM 560 The Answer mobile app. Just text the word app to 64636 to download the app today.
Hi, I'm Martha Stewart. Every year, more than 4 million pets enter shelters here in the United States. My friends at American Humane have been helping animals since 1877. The goal is to ensure that pets have a safe shelter, especially during natural disasters. Adopting a shelter pet allows shelters to help more animals awaiting care. Please consider adopting today and take some time to learn more about American Humane's other work at americanhumane.org.